Let's talk about 10 operational and organizational practices that the military does way better than civilian corporations, and discuss how you might benefit from using these military methods. Let's start off with standards. The military has tasks, conditions, and standards for everything. They have shooting standards. They have fitness standards. They have conduct standards. If you don't meet the standards, you generally are counseled in writing and given a timeline for getting back into standards. If you fail to get within standards, you get kicked out. I continue to be amazed at how many underperformers there are out there. Civilian corporations could significantly benefit from firing low-performing employees who don't meet the standards. Equal pay for sexes and races. Unlike civilian corporations where minorities or females could be paid less than their male counterparts, military pay is based upon your pay grade and time in service. It's absolutely not subjective. There is no way for the pay process to be racist or sexist. Physical fitness. Although the strength and endurance requirements are vastly different for a logistics officer or for a Navy SEAL, all members of the military are required to stay in good shape. All good units have required physical training and annual fitness testing. Healthy people are more efficient workers. Civilian businesses would benefit from developing programs to maximize employee health or making incentives for employees who stay healthy. Next is tough love. The military community calls a spade a spade. Although the military is getting disgustingly politically correct these days, the military still demands honesty. Honesty is a part of the culture. When a mission is a matter of life and death, you have to communicate directly. If someone on your team is not performing, you have to tell them. If someone on your team is getting fat, you have to tell them. If someone made a bad decision, you have to pull them aside and let them know. They need to learn so they won't make that same mistake again. Imagine a civilian boss telling a subordinate, "You're getting really fat. Fat bodies make fat brains. Better push away from the table and start doing more cardio." No way, that would never work. 30 days of vacation a year. On top of passes and the occasional 3 or 4 day weekend, the military gives you 30 days of paid vacation every year. Vacation is called leave. If you're working at a headquarters, you usually can take leave whenever you want. If you're in a deployable unit, you are usually given windows where you can and should take leave. Most of my American family and friends get 14 days of leave or less a year. Most of my European friends and family get 6 weeks of leave or more. Although they make less money, I've clearly observed that the happiness and quality of life is much higher for my friends and family with more vacation time. The military develops leaders through a systematized continuous education program. In the first 12 years of my career, I spent 6 years in training. I was always learning or training and then deploying. When I returned from a deployment, I would learn and train for the next deployment. The cycle continued. My officer basic course was 6 months. The infantry captain's career course and the combined armed service staff school, or CAS Cubed, was 7.5 months total. Special forces training, survival school, then ranger school, then scuba school, that took about 2 years. The major's course, Command and General Staff College, was 1 year long. The Army sent me to Harvard to get a master's degree. I spent half of my career training and learning and the other half of my career doing it. Sadly, most civilian corporations don't invest very much into the education and skills of its employees. Imagine how effective your business would be if every few years your company paid for you to go to school for professional development. Let's move on to standing operating procedures, or SOPs. The military has written doctrine for almost everything they do. Good units have SOPs which spell out how they do their most important tasks. There might be 10 different ways to effectively do something, but your unit does it a particular way. New arrivals simply need to read the SOP to know how their unit does things. Rather than debating how to do something, they simply identify that the trigger has been met and they execute their requirements in the SOP. Imagine all of the safety violations caught by pilots using their pre-flight checklists. This is a variation of SOPs. Imagine how much more effective your weekly meeting would be if your boss didn't improvise or tell stories, but actually conducted the meeting in accordance with an effective and efficient SOP. Staffing. Every headquarters in the military has a dedicated staff. They have a human resource section, an intelligence section, an operations section, a logistics section, a future operations section, a legal section, a finance section, and so on. Not every business needs a staff, but most medium-sized companies could benefit from dedicated staff members who handled administrative affairs, freeing up the workers to do and execute. Now let's talk about presence. One of the cultural aspects of the military that I like the most is that you must be physically and mentally present, paying attention. As a leader, of course you want to take care of people, but they belong to the military first. Their private lives frequently come second. Too often these days, someone is physically present, but their head and their mind is in their cell phone or on their social media. There is no way that a young soldier in formation would ask the first sergeant to hold on a second while he took a cell phone call. There's a lot of freedom and liberty these days for members of the military, but when you're on duty, you're on duty. You are present and you're paying attention. And finally, let's discuss violating personal privacy or taking responsibility. I remember my first sergeant telling everyone in the platoon that no one was allowed to buy a car or get married without his permission. He didn't want a private straight out of basic training to buy a $50,000 truck and make $800 payments with 15% interest for the next 20 years. He didn't want promising soldiers to marry someone stupid and ruin their lives. Some of you might be appalled at the audacity of my platoon sergeant, but he cared for his men and he violated their privacy because he wanted to ensure that they make good decisions. In the civilian world, it would be unthinkable for your supervisor to go through your finances and tell you if you could afford a brand new truck or not. What about a $1,000 cell phone? But the truth is that most Americans have debt, and this statistic is totally embarrassing for the rest of us who learned how to balance a budget when we were 10 years old. Heaven forbid that you go without something for a few months or a year while you save for it. Honestly, I think we could all benefit from an old-fashioned platoon sergeant who doesn't let us make bad decisions. Okay, there you have it. 10 operational and organizational concepts which the military practices on a daily basis. Adopting these concepts will help you or your civilian corporation be more efficient and effective. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you want to keep learning and forward to a friend who needs to know this. Life is a special operation. Are you ready for it?